So just got done watching Paizo's keynote from Gen Con. So much information in there. I'm going to go ahead and start this out with my biggest two things that I like, just so kind of do a TLDW here. First of all, is we are getting new character sheets for Pathfinder 2nd Edition Remaster. Love it, love it, love it, as well as something that's kind of interesting. And even if you don't play in it, it's still pretty important. And that is Starfinder 2nd Edition is coming. They are field testing it now. They'll be play testing it in 2024. It'll be released in 2025. Here's why it's important. Full interplay between Starfinder and Pathfinder, meaning you can bring Pathfinder classes, creatures, items to Starfinder, and you can bring Starfinder stuff, classes, ancestries, creatures from Starfinder into Pathfinder. That's just a lot. But let's go ahead and kind of get into this summary. So this is going to be my normal summary. I'm going to try to reduce that hour and 20-minute presentation into something that you can watch really quickly. Fully recommend that you watch the actual keynote yourself and don't just rely on my summary, but I'm going to give you the high points and do suggest that you watch the full stream yourself. But let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to be staring a little bit off to my right here because I have my notes up on the screen, but I will try and go through it as quick as I can. So we opened up with Erik Mona, who is the Chief Creative Officer for the keynote. He brought up the fact that one of the big things that happened this year was the OGL. Paizo worked with a bunch of other publishers to create the Orc license, and how that kind of keyed a lot of the changes in the remaster, gave them an opportunity to actually do the remaster and bring in a bunch of things that they wanted to change anyways. So also was talking about how he's going to introduce a bunch of different things in this keynote where we'll get kind of tastes of what's coming up throughout this particular Gen Con weekend, and the key stakeholders that will be on. Organized play is currently going on. You can find out all the schedules and all the information if you wanted to play an organized play online. You can go to paizo.com/GenCon, and that kind of has a schedule of activities as to what they're doing. Also talked about how at the beginning of the year, they came out with treasure vaults, as well as ports of call for Starfinder and Gatewalkers. So some interesting announcements that he had that I'm really enjoying and really looking forward to, because I want to get more into Society play myself, in truth, and that would be on August 30th, Pathfinder Society and Starfinder Society will be coming on Foundry VTT starting then. You can get just a base version of these particular things with just the tokens and the general maps and that kind of thing if you already have the PDFs, or you can get the deluxe version to bring into Foundry where it'll basically give you everything without having to have the PDFs. Also mention that at the booth, if you are at Gen Con right now, they do have special limited edition dice tied to Rage of Elements, elemental dice sets. One of the dice will have a goblin head in it, and the other dice will be tied to an element. They will be selling 60 per day, and they're available for $70. At the booth, Roll20 will also distribute codes for the beginner box for free, and you get a free month of Roll20 Pro. You're supposed to look for Rachel. This is if you're at Gen Con, you're supposed to look for Rachel and say that you want to learn to play Pathfinder on Roll20. That's kind of the phrase you have to say, the magic words, in order to get this code for Roll20. Also at the booth, WizKids is reducing limited edition miniatures. There's going to be a different figure each day, and you can get them with a $50 purchase. 2 additional figures for Starfinder and Pathfinder Adventures will be released Friday and Saturday at the Organized Play location. And all weekend long, there's 23% off 23 products at the Paizo store. I already bought 2 new things. I bought a Monsters of Myth PDF as well as a Lost Omens book. So I've already done that. You might want to get on it too if you want something maybe that you were looking for in the past that you didn't have a chance to, but this is a good chance to get 23% off. They're going to be streaming some panels once per day. There's going to be a different panel every day. Once again, you can go to paizo.com/GenCon and see what the schedule is going to be, as well as some further updates from the Starfinder team at the end of it. Once again, I kind of gave you that clue at the beginning. Starfinder 2nd Edition. Really interesting. With that, we're going to move on to Pathfinder design team and upcoming projects and what's ahead. So Logan Bonner came on, who is the Pathfinder lead designer, talked about Rage of Elements, about the elements, 6 elements, including metal and wood that were introduced. The planes were just kind of reopened and added some more things to air, earth, fire, and water. Talked about the Kineticist class showpiece, how if you want a character that can repeatedly and nonstop just kind of send out these, not necessarily spells, but impulses, how to build, how many elements you can use. You can go all in on one element, or you can dabble in a bunch of different elements with your Kineticist class. Once again, it uses impulse instead of spells. This was a very in-depth class simply because it's introducing things that have not been in Pathfinder before. A lot of it is new to Pathfinder, and this is essentially a blaster class. His words, I know that it is also very good for melee, or for melee as well, but there's a whole bunch of new elemental lore, new spell items, creatures, as well as revising how genies are done and genie canon, how it is available now. Then he talked a little bit about the Pathfinder 2nd Edition remaster. A set of new core books, Player Core and GM Core, are coming in November. One of the big things that he brought up specifically was that the GM Core is going to have all the GM information in one place, unlike it is now where you have some in the player handbook and some in the game mastery guide. It's all going to be in one place. Better order, more user-friendly. The core is more player-friendly. Improved organization based on feedback, and some expansion on some things and quality of life improvements. The remaster is going to be fully using the new orc license. It's going to be removing the dependence on the OGL. This is their words, it is a remaster, not a new edition. Almost all of the old stuff is still usable. Some will require adaptation, but you can look at the core preview document, which you've kind of already covered, to use the Rage of Element type rules with the remaster. The new genies will fully be in the monster core, so although genies are introduced in Rage of Elements, there'll be more in monster core. Notes on how the rules are adapted and how you can adjust them now if you would like to try them by using the remaster core preview. Now, Rage of Elements is fully compliant with the remaster, which is why the core rulebook preview is out. And at 10 a.m. on Saturday, that is Eastern time, they will be having a panel that is all about the remaster. There's going to be a few of the new monster images and a new character sheet. That's where we heard about the new character sheet, which I'm super excited for. The remaster books release in November. Monster Core and Player Core 2 are going to be coming out in 2024. Then handed things off to Michael Sayer. Michael Sayer is the design manager. He was talking about how there's a new secret book and a new playtest coming out. It is part of a linked product that basically is going to be including the narrative books, the Lost Omen books, and the novels are going to be linked together with a linked story to push the world of Galarian forward. Even the gods may die, not just demigods. Some member of the core 20 deities will not survive the event. And this is going to be occurring September 2nd through October 2nd, this particular playtest with new classes. There are going to be new iconics and classes that were conceived by Michael Sayer and James Case. And keep an eye on the forums as additional materials to peruse during the playtest are going to be released. So, if you don't go to the forums on Paizo, this might be a good time to start. And there will be 2 fully remastered player classes that have not appeared in Pathfinder before. So super excited to see what those are going to be. Once again, that is occurring September 2nd through October 2nd. Then we went on to Highhelm and Sky King's Tomb with John Compton and Luis Losa. Both of these are released, at least the first book of Sky King's Tomb, setting the line where the narrative and the setting kind of cross paths. It's evidenced with Highhelm and the Sky King's Tomb. Lost Omen Dwarves are branching out. They're introducing more about the culture and the history and how to show that off. Talked about how Highhelm Lost Omens is your go-to source to the Citadel of the Dwarves and the dwarfiest dwarf city. Some of the stuff we already knew before. It's a very interesting city that's built into a mountain with multiple tiers. There are new monsters, new spells, new magic items, a dwarven goodness that can be added to your campaigns, and it's information to use Highhelm in your campaigns. Once again, these are all things that we saw before. Sky King's Tomb is level 1 through 10, takes place in Highhelm, and John Compton actually brought up that you could spend the entire time running Sky King's Tomb without seeing the sun. Takes you to the Darklands, which is an underground area, and going into other subterranean cities, specifically in the second book. And one city is more dangerous than the last. Each city is different. There's different ways to navigate, and different, even so much so that is who can see what type of creatures can see what in these certain cities. What makes Highhelm stand out is it's built into a mountain. It has a focus on tradition, specifically clans. Each one of these clans is large, thousands of members, and clans that have very specific focuses, like the Tolor is keeping track of history, and each clan has their own specialty. How the clans shape and influence life within Highhelm is very important into this particular book. Information on joining a clan, even if you're not a dwarf. Then we talked a little bit more about Sky King's Tomb, how you're working with Clan Tolar and living history, that you kind of live out this living history every single day. And Clan Tolar actually has historical reenactors. It's a thing that you can take if you decide to become part of Clan Tolar. Talked a little bit about the player's guide for Sky King's Tomb, how it can catch you up to speed without going full on into the lore of Highhelm, and how it is a dwarf-focused AP, but is not dwarf only. Some spoilers that lie ahead for Sky King's Tomb. Even though there's a lot of underground, there is more of an urban sandbox, so you can spend a lot of time just dealing with the Highhelm drama if you want to, and talk about how your reputation is important in the setting, and how you need to think about the reputation that you are creating for yourself. It's about what you do and what inspires you. You start as unknowns in the city, but you have opportunities to show off what kind of players you are. Brought up local contests, and once again, we've already seen this in some of the Paizo Con things, but the Stickleberry Festival, where you can be the Stickleberry Sovereign or the Stickleberry Pie Eating Contest. And Luis's spoiler was there's a few possible story hooks woven into Highhelm for further adventures. Some of the stuff they're going to be talking about in the panel later on the weekend is the concept work that was used for Lost Omens Highhelm's Kent Hamilton, fleshed out the look of the 12 clans, and there are fun little bits that bring the clans to life. And then some not new concept art, but some concept art from the Lost Omens Highhelm book that challenges the ideas that dwarves all have one look. From there, we went into organized play, and that was Alex Speedell and Linda Z.S. Palmer. Talked a little bit how organized play, what is Pathfinder and Starfinder Society, how it's a living campaign, and explained a little bit about how it is more of a drop in, drop out type of thing where you can, if you have just a few hours on a day, drop into your local game store or drop in online and play a session. And then, you're not tied to come back. They're self-contained storylines, but you can take the same character from session to session, location to location, country to country if you want, because that's how society is kind of played up. Talked about a little bit about what's going on at Gen Con. There's going to be the first physical run of Starfinder Society Battle for the Bulwark. Every table is participating in this particular battle, and it's a crucial turning point in Starfinder Society, and that is the election of the first Seeker. Alex talks a little bit about the candidates for the first Seeker, which is 6-6, which was written by Alex Speedell, and each were submitted by players. They are actual player characters. You can meet them in this particular organized play campaign. Once again, that's 606. And you can meet them, and you can go out on a mission that each one of them is assigned, so you would know kind of where Starfinder Society will be heading if you choose to elect a particular candidate. Voting is now until October 31st. You really need to meet them in the scenario. They do give a brief introduction, but once again, they did recommend that you actually meet them in the scenario. But there is a website, which is paizo.com/Starfinder Society/First Seeker. And there you can kind of meet the candidates there. Rather than give you just the one-line introduction that was given, I suggest you go to that website and kind of look to see about the first Seekers. Then we talked a little bit about the Pathfinder side. What's being played at Gen Con, which is 416, 417, and 499. with $4.99 Blessing of the Forest wrapping up the season. It is a interactive special world premiere at the con, which is the Elven Nation of Convenin, an elf noble, kind of deals with an elf noble that has ominous plans. And then we talked a little bit about the Year of Unfettered Exploration, which is coming up next. So 501, which is the intro. It kind of goes into a hedge maze full of portals that lead all over the world and beyond, and how you'll be interacting with some members from Pathfinder Society and kind of doing an intro into the new year. And then 502, which was Blackwood Lost, kind of ties into Rage of Elements. Well, you'll be dealing with some elemental mayhem in the Blackwood Swamp, and the Pathfinder Society must go in and save the researchers. Also told you a little bit how to play at the con or online. There are walk-up bounties all day, and they have demos available if you've never played before. Online, you can go to gencon.com/online and kind of sign up for an online badge. It is free, so you don't have to pay for it. Also mentioned that they will be at PAX. It's a demo of new board games from Paizo are going to be seen at PAX. And then they had teases for organized play later in the year, kind of like 2 words for each one of the 2 different societies. For Starfinder Society, it was Desert Racing and Ghost Ships. And for Pathfinder Society, it was Arcadia and an Accursed Dollhouse. Then they kind of did this little acty thingy where they had a signal from D-Space was coming in on Alex's headphones. And that's kind of where they introduced the Starfinder 2nd Edition playtest coming in 2024. It will be 100% compatible with the Pathfinder remaster. All the content will be able to be slottable between Pathfinder and Starfinder and Pathfinder seamlessly, including classes, ancestries, items, magic, so on and so forth. Thurston Hillman talked about, when it's going to be released, which is 2024 is the playtest, full release in 2025. And they kind of brought up why they're announcing it now. And the reason why is because they're looking to do the most open playtest that Paizo's ever done. A lot of the content will be kind of slowly released over the weeks and months, and there will be some streamed gains that'll show you behind the scenes of the development. And so starting right now, gave us some stuff right off the bat. You can go to starfinderplaytest.com to get the free field test. It is not necessarily a full-on play test, but is a view behind the scenes of where they are at the moment. They talked about some of the things, and they kind of introduced 4 iconics and 4 classes. Soldier class, which is available on starfinderplaytest.com, levels 1 through 5 are there right now, including some space guns and a couple of creatures, or critters as they call them. Soldier is a new class. It's a tank with heavy area of effect weapons and a couple of other interesting bits and bobs is what they said are available at that website. And then they talked a little bit about how everyone involved in this is so excited about it, and they felt that they couldn't say anything for a while, but they're finally getting to kind of introduce a little bit. So a little bit more on the content. Obliziel is making her way from the 1st edition and getting a bit long in the years. Not going to be as much of a melee powerhouse in this particular edition, but big area guns, once again, because it's a soldier class. They still can melee as well, but they're more going to be about area effect. The next iconic is a Mystic Shirin. Name is Chick Chick. Was a larval container in 1st edition, but now Chick Chick is the character that is the iconic for the Mystic class, which is now being play tested. His old larval container is built into his pain glaive, and he kind of has his own larval container with his brother on loan, is what they said. And how this particular mystic deals with the god Zon Shellen, which is kind of a new and an old deity as well, and kind of use that to give a view on this particular mystic's things and how it is all about channeling one's pain, trauma, and emotion into art. And sometimes that's literally doing art. And sometimes it's art on the battlefield through the pain glaive, sharing the emotions that they have felt with whoever they're fighting. And then Dusted Knight came on and just a little bit more about that, how what the Mystic does is it forms bonds with your allies, with your party, and using those bonds to create a networked vitality to kind of help heal everyone. So cleric adjacent type class, although with 2nd edition, you can bring a cleric into Starfinder now. Next was the iconic Envoy Nervosi. Nervosi apparently is from first edition, but has leveled up and aged quite a bit. Got a lot of scars going on and a lot of guns. The clothing that was integral to her identity is still with her, but it's looking a bit tore up and a little bit worse for wear. Now, the Envoy is going to be a big help on the battlefield by issuing directives and orders on the field, and you will get bonuses if you follow their directions and orders. However, they are also very capable of holding their own when things turn south, and they can get in on the action if need be. They also talked a little bit about another class, an iconic, a Solaran, unnamed. They just got that information today. It's a new ancestry and a class that is still in development, and they're saving the details on the class that the Solarian will be playing in the future. But it is basically a new Patra, which is a new core ancestry. It's a feline ancestry, home world of Polanis, which is a new pact world. And here's was their description, kind of a summer party 90s vibe and a future retro kind of thing. It actually has a little drone camera that is carried by this particular character who is kind of like an infosphere media star. Then they brought up each one of the designers that was in this particular Starfinder panel to kind of give what they're excited about. So we'll start with Jenny Jarzabski, which was the 3-action economy is finally coming to Starfinder, is what they're most excited for. It allows you to do more of a story versus building a bonus to whatever hit you're going to do. And they brought up one which was a soldier's ability called Menacing Laughter, where you throw your head back and laugh to demoralize the enemy, and how they're bringing more one-action abilities and actions into the system because there is this new 3-action economy within Starfinder. Thurston Hillman came up, was talking about class interplay and how the classes are shaping up and how integral that was to designing second edition. How it's not just an archetype fantasy class in space, not a space fighter, but something unique. The Mystic is not just a space cleric, it has its own different niche. And how classes are going to stand on their own as you can use the classes in Pathfinder and vice versa. And deities haven't been very integral to Starfinder, but they are going to be now, as since Pathfinder can come in now, the deities can have their own favored weapons, but they might be Starfinder themed ones because of the interplay. Jessica Catalan, her thing that she thought was very important was max level spell casting in Starfinder. There's new weird and wild things that can happen now because spells were only at 6th level in Starfinder, but now they go up to 10 due to the fact that they can interplay with Pathfinder. So there is going to be more higher level spell interaction within Starfinder now. Bespoke Starfinder spells, but since there is compatibility, you have this whole library of things that you can bring into Starfinder because it's going to be compatible with Pathfinder and the other way around as well. Starfinder can have unique spells, but they can use old spells from first edition as well as the Pathfinder stuff. She brought up some of the names that thought were kind of interesting. Event Horizon, Doom Scroll, Glow Up, and Motivating Ringtone, which is an interesting one. Dustin Knight came on next, which was cross-compatibility with Pathfinder, is what he was most excited for. Monster compatibility as well. You have the whole bestiary from Pathfinder can now be brought into Starfinder. It's a new game, but you have an entire shelf of compatible stuff to use and monsters and threats to use. They are playtesting against P2E monsters right now and a certain vampire, and they talked a little bit about an interaction with air and how there are some monsters within this field guide at starfinderplaytest.com that you can slot into Pathfinder 2nd Edition games right now. Now we kind of summarized that up, so they went back to Erik Mona, and he reminded us all of the programming is available at paizo.com/GenCon. Thanks to everybody for watching if we're doing it online and coming if you're at Gen Con right now. Reminded everybody, remember there is that 23% discount on 23 items at the Paizo store, so go ahead and check that out. I've already got 2 things and I might wind up doing more before the weekend is over. And if you're at Gen Con, to come by the booth. Now, I do hope you enjoyed this summary. I tried to kind of condense that hour and 20 minutes into something a little bit more manageable, and looks like I probably got it in somewhere around 20-something minutes. So it is a bit of a summary, but I do appreciate you guys watching, and I will be doing this again for each one of the panels as they come out during the weekend. But I do hope you like this video. And if you did, feel free to like, subscribe, or hit that notification bell. But whatever you do, I hope you have a great day and happy adventuring. Thanks.